Meeting to order.
All the problems.
And move for approval of the minutes for the May meeting.
I make a motion to approve the May meeting's minutes.
A second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. One absent. Okay. Appearance of interested citizens. I think we'll skip right through that since there's no citizens here other than ourselves. A public hearing, proposed development code. Can we just go ahead and open that? Okay. Open the public hearing, proposed development code amendment 2019.14. Staff.
Okay. Well, let me jump in and start. Shane will walk you through the specifics of the nuances of the SIC code and how it is a bit of a rabbit trail occasionally, but anyway. So we were contacted by the Vanna here to my left is showing us that. We were contacted by the tribes and the tribes representatives, Alan Roothouse. You may be familiar with the name. Alan was instrumental in the development of Area A. He's also done throughout the Mid-Willamette Valley. He's also been instrumental in several other commercial developments. Anyway, the tribes have asked him to work with them, and we had a meeting, and their request it was to basically allow in Area D, in the jug handle, in the area where we have flexibility in flex space uses as defined in the code, to allow some retail kinds of uses, as well as it was amended in 2014, 15, I don't know, the years are all kind of blending together. But anyway, a few years ago, it was amended to allow a service station. That is well and good. However, they wanted the opportunity to be able to incorporate some of the other uses that would kind of go along with a service station. However, the SIC, the way it's construed, that if, for example, the operator of a convenience store wanted to also operate a quick lube shop under their operation, the SIC could give you a path to do that. However, as you know, 7-Eleven is not in the business of doing that. So they're asking basically that we broaden the uses that are allowed to incorporate those kinds of uses, including, as you see on the announcement, to allow auto and home supply stores, typically a tire, battery, and automotive, which would be something like a Les Schwab, would fall under that category, and automotive services, which would allow a quick lube kind of situation. And so that is the request that is before you, is to have you consider those. Now, the reason you don't see anybody here is in conversation with them, they kind of got the impression, and I apologize to them and to everybody if I gave this impression, but they basically thought that this would be something that we would be presenting to you, that it would be a staff-initiated text amendment, and that we perhaps didn't want confusing testimony. I'm not sure, I don't know. Can I say it any better, Shannon? I don't know. Anyway, they thought that it would be better for us to have the conversation between you and staff and some of our concerns or some of our perspective anyway. And so that's why they are not here. They would have been willing, if we would have communicated directly otherwise and asked them to be here, they would have been here. So with that, I will ask Shane to walk through the Standard Industrial Classification Manual, which is what SIC stands for.
Sweet. Yeah, I was thinking I would just read it. We can just read all the categories. Maybe we'll get done in 7 years or something. No, so I think that just a couple things to add. I think Nate he kind of, it's a pretty basic text amendment, right? There's not a lot of additional red on the page, so it's pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that gets a little strange with it is that nuance of when, well, in this case, when a gasoline service station is a gasoline service station versus being a gasoline service station. And in that, what I mean by that is the fact that when they came to us and discussed with us what uses would be allowed in this industrial business park zone, while gasoline service stations were clearly expressly allowed by categorical description as, SIC number 554, the description in that manual for a gasoline service station actually has some language in it that says the sale of tires and batteries and other secondary and accessory uses are allowed to happen as a gasoline service station. Now, and we kind of explained it in the staff report, essentially what the tribe's representatives had kind of asked us for was an interpretation, essentially, without formally asking for an interpretation. And they essentially argued that, hey, based on that definition in the SIC manual, based on a definition in the development code for service station, not a gasoline service station, but a service station, there's some ambiguity and there's some flexibility. So could it just be construed that a gasoline service station, SIC number 554, could also apply to a standalone tire retailer or a standalone quick lube oil change place? So after we kind of looked through all the different categories and looked at the more accurate descriptions, as well as kind of the intent and the adopted master plan of Area D, which clearly shows a gasoline service station that has pump islands, the determination was made at the staff level that no, we can't just say that a quick lube or a tire store is the same as a gasoline service station. It would have to be held under common ownership and operational protocols. So, and we talked about it a lot. I used to work at a gas station. We were like the last gas station in town that did full service. We had a full-time mechanic, and it was like my high school job, and we did oil changes and the whole 9 yards. And we as gas pumpers got commission on the tires we sold and alternators and wiper blades and all of that. And that gasoline service station, though, was primarily a gasoline service station. And so that was, we kind of explained to them, well, if you do it that way and it's one owner that runs it all, absolutely it could meet it. And because they want flexibility, and it sounds like they're pursuing some different tenants and have some interests, it wouldn't be something that would be conducive for what they want to do with that property at Area D. So that's ultimately why we have the text amendment before you. I think the only other thing I would add, and I think Nate kind of said this, but as we looked at it, from a staff perspective, we laid out the path of what would have to happen legally to allow those uses to be on that space. I think the question becomes, from a policy perspective, for you folks to consider, is that appropriate to expand that use to clarify that ambiguity for that Area D property? So, bottom line is, flex space was always imagined there. The master plan shows different building footprints there. They show a few restaurants, they show the gasoline station, they show a mixed retail building. It doesn't say what those uses would be. And so what this would ultimately do is it would allow an avenue for a amended master site plan, or the existing site plan to be used if the building fit exactly in the same footprint and all of that. But most likely, it would allow the avenue for a amended master plan to be applied for that site to reconfigure some buildings, and it could show, oh, here's a tire, battery, and accessory retailer, here's a gasoline service station, here's a quick lube oil change place, here's a car wash, that's another category that's captured by these. And they may all be operated by different badging of the signs on the side of the building. So, yes, Nate?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
On the face of it, it seems like, what's the big deal? I mean, the decision has already been made to allow a gasoline service station, and if that gasoline service station wanted to sell tires and batteries and whatever, then that would be allowed. And so what's the big use? So I wanted to point out and perhaps just read that last paragraph in your staff report, that section 2.125 establishes an allowance of restricted uses, they're called flex space uses, to allow some, up to 30%, inclusion of retail commercial type of uses to the main industrial uses allowed in the underlying industrial business park zone. The policy question before the Planning Commission is whether broadening the intent of the Keizer Station plan to include more auto-oriented use in Area D is appropriate. The proposal doesn't alter the other limitations of flex space. It's not like the percentages is proposed to be changed, or that there's a significant alteration of those kinds of uses. Currently, the adopted master plan authorizes 38,809 square feet of commercial retail uses. That's the already approved master plan. They have not asked that percentage be expanded, but in fairness and in caution, we don't know what their proposal would be. They could come back with an altered master plan. They have not used that 30% limitation. So I just want you to understand there is some significant policy questions here. It's not just well, that kind of is a no-brainer, whatever. There are some significant issues at stake.
Mr. Brown, when you're talking about this 30%, this dates back to their kind of original outline, correct? And if they can manage that, that's fine, but also I'm concerned about, or I'm questioning, if you have a significant tire operation, car wash shop, or whatever it is out there, what's the impact on traffic? Because now as we go, there's different times in the day when that wraparound, or whatever the technical name for that is, traffic can be backed up for quite a distance.
Yeah.
And that's prior to, one of the other big traffic generators out there potentially with in and out and whatever else might be developed.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Some concerns. So the actual answer to that question is, if they have a significant traffic impact over their approved master plan, they will have to go through a transportation impact analysis and go through that process. Right now, there is no specific proposal. This is not a quasi-judicial decision. This is simply a legislative decision on the policy that will govern the future development of that site. So, yes, those are very good concerns, but those are not things that we can answer right at the moment. Just that I can assure you that the process anticipates that if there is a significant change, they will have to address it.
Mr. Kellier.
What was the original vision for this area, and why not except repair? Why not auto repair?
Well, the original vision when the Keizer Station plan was created was that the industrial business park zone would be basically a job-oriented kind of creation. The inclusion of this flex space allowance was originally intended to be support to those those employment lands.
Okay. What about except auto repair? I don't understand why not.
So, Mark, I'll jump in just, so with the categories, they are, they have certain names. They don't always line up with everything. Generally, when we're talking about repair shops or heavier, industry, I'll say, right? The heavier, we're doing engine swaps, we're taking out blocks and pressure washing stuff. There's a lot more noise, there's a lot more odors, there's a lot more dead cars sitting around. Whereas in that industrial business park zone, it's not an industrial general zone, it's not a heavier commercial general zone. It was intended to be more of that business park feel. That's kind of the intent of that industrial business park. So a little lighter industry, and then the flex space uses specifically are more retail oriented. So in the category of automotive repair or automotive services except repair, it allows things like car washes, cleaning and detailing, let's see, what else does it have? It has like diagnostic stuff, emissions testing, has the quick lube, like your Jiffy Lubes and Oil Can Henry's kind of setups, where it's a little bit more of a in and out, cars aren't sitting there being stored, they're not being dismantled, there's not body work being done, things like that. So I think as much as anything, it has to do with somewhat the aesthetics that go along with those businesses and where they get oriented in the midst of other development. So in this case, the reason that that category is getting put in there is because that's specifically where car washes and the lubricating services live in the SIC manual.
Well, what about like a Midas muffler shop or something like that?
Let me look. I believe
Firestone.
that would be in that same category. Um,
I mean, they do brakes and mufflers and turn things into gold and whatever else they do.
Midas touch.
yeah. Trying to think of like say so they're mufflers, brakes. They're gonna fall more into the automotive repair category than the service, the quicker service category. So yeah, they'd be more like a full service repair shop,
Not
garage.
like the drop it off, pick it up 3 days from now kind of
Yeah.
mechanic. Mm-hmm. I've got a big yard full of cars that aren't moving.
Right.
And it's going to be here whether you want to see it or not kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to step on.
No,
Nope, that's
perfect.
Michael?
The 38,000 square feet thing, does that, I'm assuming we're talking, that would include the gas stations.
Yes.
Does that include the islands, or is that just the
No,
building?
that's square footage.
Of the building.
Building interior space.
So, like the one over in Brooks, at that exit, would that be the size we're talking about?
No, no, it would not be a truck, it would be automotive, and that is governed by the master plan. So they do want to include a couple of more pumps, but it's still completely automobile, not truck-oriented service. So as long as they stay within that realm, we've told them that they have flexibility on where the pumps are oriented and that sort of thing. We've never held the master plan to be a crystalline, carved in stone, this is what you do, and don't talk to me. We have limited them to the square footage. We've given them lots of flexibility on orientation and placement as long as they're not swapping or completely reorienting the master plan. And one other thing that I should, because they're not here and because I kind of feel a responsibility to share their perspective, and some of the other reasons why it has been a difficult thing for us to come to you to have this discussion is, it's been pointed out that Area D sits vacant. And part of the reason, there's a lot of, it's a complex world. But part of the reason is the governance of the decisions that happens in Area D is both tribes have to come to agreement. And this is the first time in the entire time that we have had Keizer Station, that we have had an actual development pathway presented to us. And so it's been pointed out, and part of our thought process is to consider the fact that if it takes giving them a little more flexibility and giving them some more opportunity, that perhaps we might see more, that window may be opened to a greater extent, and we may see more activity in Area D.
Mr. Johnson.
If I could. For some reason, someone sabotaged my mic. Follow up on your question to Shane. He's absolutely right, the way it's described, that subsection, but it's designed that way. I mean, we didn't add the except repair, is what I'm getting at, Mark, is the classification of 7549 says automotive services except repair. And so, and car washes, that's why car washes fits in the other category, I think. And then I have the Area D file with me, but I'm not positive is the problem that this is the final map. But I think somebody was asking what's the current layout, and Nate described it. It's basically convenience store with gas station and then another food type store or restaurant, I think. And then it just says tenant retail for some small shop buildings within the jug handle. So it's really not a lot of change in a way, and depending on how you look at it, the car wash and the quick lube are, but so.
Okay. Mark? Nothing? Okay. The question for staff is, I don't want you to put words in their mouths, but from what you've described to this point, do you think there's anything that we might be missing or any unintended consequences by not having the property owner or their representative here to hear from them?
No, they have our staff report. We've had those conversations with them. I honestly don't think if they were here, they would give you any more information than what I've conveyed to you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board members, commission members? Anything else from staff?
And just to follow up on that last, I had a conversation with Alan just today. Shannon and I both. Was it Shannon or Shane? Shannon and I both. S's.
Okay. Well, can we close the public hearing and move forward? Public hearing is closed. Discussions, questions, motions? Michael?
My reason for not being in favor of this is, and my numbers may be off, but we've got 2 tire stores, 2 car washes, 2 lube shops, and 3 parts stores on River Road. And I feel like this would be potentially undercutting business in town on our main street. So that's my feeling.
Okay. Other input, comments?
Wouldn't the whole point of it be to support, I mean, if we're talking about the 30% flex space, and that is intended per the master plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's intended to support a larger build out of a business industrial park that would be intended to support that. While I'm not looking for opportunities to disrupt the business that's along River Road that brings people into town, if this kind of to the point greases the wheels a little bit to actually get development in a place where there is currently not development, and makes it easier for them to say, okay, now we've got some support structures, now it would be easier to justify building this warehouse, building this whatever it ends up being. I think the potential to cancel out the disruption is there.
Well, I think that's a lot of hypothetical, how things are going to progress on that site.
Right.
But if one of these businesses do open up, say a large national chain that starts, people start going there, we have some local owned businesses
Sure.
on River Road that would be hurt most directly.
Mr. Kellier?
If I recall, I always heard this area as being something like a travel center, is, I think, a term I heard applied to that from the very beginning, and whatever that means to whoever. I don't think, does anybody build a gas station anymore without a convenience market attached? I don't think anybody does, unless they already have a big store like Safeway and they're just putting pumps out front. But my understanding, if we would not approve something like this, they could still go in and basically do it under one roof.
It wouldn't actually have to be under one roof.
Well,
But yeah, it would be one ownership.
yeah, not
Yes.
under one roof, but one
That-
operation. I mean,
That
we
is
could-
correct, Mark, and that was what, what's that? Yeah, car washes is actually mentioned in, the category gasoline service station says including car washes. So, and that was, honestly, I do think that I won't put words in the representatives of the property owners, but we do have an email from them at one point, which they reiterated their position that they felt that we as staff could interpret in their favor because of their lawyery arguments. So I think that, yes, Mark, you're absolutely right. If it was a one-stop shop owned by one person, operated as one entity, it could be built that way.
The tribes wanted to finance, build it, and operate it, own it themselves. They could do that. Or if they found, Jubits or somebody that wanted to do that. But what they're asking for is a flexibility to be able to have multiple business owners.
Yeah, I don't think we actually, Shane reminded me, and I don't think we shared that with you. We started this conversation with them saying, you as staff could simply make that determination that we could, do that. And Shane did the heavy lifting in the SIC to point out that they're allowed as accessory only. There are specific categories that govern these uses, and they are not included. So they started out with saying, you as staff, we believe you as staff have the latitude to already give us that interpretation. And so after that analysis, we said, I don't think so. I think this is a bigger policy question, and that's why we're here.
To what Mark was saying, though, it still has under one ownership, it still has a 30% limitation.
Yes, absolutely. And Michael, that 30%, that number, it's for all of Area D. So, right now we have a master plan that got approved in 2000, Shannon, what's that, 2004?
Area D?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Because
Probably.
technically the Area D master plan actually got approved and finalized before the Area A master plan. Because Area A, there was remand and reapplying of things, and there were some issues that
We were
we
so young.
all remember. But so yeah, that master plan that's there, I mean, it actually cites buildings on both sides of the curved road. So there's like the gas station, a drive-through restaurant, a flex retail building that Shannon was describing, and then on the other side of the jug, just on the water tower side, there's another restaurant that's shown and another retail building, and then basically a spine road running towards the water tower with some kind of campus industrial buildings that were designed, and it was all intended in the original master plan approval to be kind of a phase 1, phase 2. So this phase 1, Mark, what you use, kind of that travel center, that was kind of the phase 1 element, and then the additional buildings that may house some light industry or some offices or things like that would have been the phase 2. So with what the text amendment would do essentially is that if that existing retail building that's shown as a flex space use, that right now it had no users identified, if they came in and said, we want to get a building permit, the building's that same size or smaller in the same area, and instead of being a retailer of clothes or goods or whatever, it was a car wash, or it was a lube oil filter place, or a tire store, it could be done with the proposed change. Whereas right now, we are saying, no, you wouldn't be able to do that. It would only be one of these other flex space uses that are listed in the zone. So, if that helps. But the percentages there for the whole area, they wouldn't change at all.
Okay, is there any other questions or concerns? And if not, is there a motion coming forward from somebody in some direction?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I move that we adopt the staff's recommendations regarding the proposed Development Code Amendment 2019-14.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second?
And just so we're clear, that your motion is actually that you make the recommendation to adopt,
Yes.
because you do not make,
Adopt as the planning, to recommend to the city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
just so everybody knows.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Aye.
all right, the motion passes 5 to 1. Okay, thank you for getting that done. Let's see, new and old business staff report? Kim?
Do I get to be staff today?
No, you look like you had a question down there.
No.
Okay.
Just Nate and I were looking, we couldn't add together, so.
Okay. Staff?
Okay, so our Keizer revitalization plan that you all have been a part of, we're all very aware that it's happening or getting closer and closer. We kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up tonight that we are scheduled to be having the first public hearing on the plan and kind of the implementing proposed drafts for the language of the comp plan, the zone code, and the zone change portion, and the overlay district portion at next month's Planning Commission in August. So our DLCD notice has been put in. We will be sending out a large, because of the way that the plan is structured, we are going to get to send out a large Measure 56 notice to lots of property owners, which means it has some kind of scary language that says this may affect your property. So I expect Nate's phone to be ringing off the hook for a while. But I mean, the good news is that for the most part, the new restrictions are actually more flexible than what currently exists. But with that being said, we kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a primer and a heads up. Our consultant is putting some final touches on what they're deeming to be the Planning Commission draft of the plan. It's kind of for your eyes. So we're expecting to have that by the end of this week, and I'm hoping to have it sent out to you guys probably next week. Debbie will be sending you out a big fat packet of stuff, so don't be scared of it. But the plan itself is pretty easy to consume. You've probably all seen it. It's all those appendices that are a little tougher, but we wanted to get it to you ahead of time because really the appendices are kind of where the meat of the changes that are going to affect the community in what we're hoping to be a positive way are found. So, you know, we want you guys to get into that, look at it. If you have questions, call us, email us. We'll do our best to answer those. You know, I think for me personally, it's been a long project. I think Nate coined the phrase at one of our conference calls a couple weeks ago that people are starting to get project fatigue with this grant. And yes, we are all feeling that, and especially Shane. But so I'm excited that we get to bring it to the public hearing, and the consultants will be here to kind of do a presentation for you guys and walk you through. But we really do ask that you spend some time in that plan and in those appendices that have the actual the proposed development code amendments and comp plan amendments and map changes that are going to be proposed, and kind of go through it as fine a tooth comb as you have time to, so that when the meeting comes in August, we'll have a good, productive meeting.
And as Shane said, so you guys have been working on this plan and have been putting in hours in this process. So when this monster packet comes to you, we knew this was going to be an issue, that there's a lot of stuff there, but we wanted your familiarity with it. You have been there, you've been to those hearings and public outreach efforts. So this is the culmination of this long process. We're excited about it. There are always, with any major new kind of thing, there's always, oh, well, what if? What if that? But the reality is this is an opportunity to start casting our look forward and saying, this is what we want to change Keizer to be. So we're excited about it.
Nate? Oh, go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry. I have a question too when you're done.
Mine is kind of a big
Okay.
overarching question. If yours is quicker, you might want to go.
Well, go ahead.
All right, well, I just wanted to know, that bill that passed, the housing one, will that affect this or the housing analysis?
I mean, no single-family zoning?
Right.
We'll allow up to
allowing-
4 units on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, like, will it affect it in what the end product is going to look like?
It won't affect this one, my thought is, but we haven't seen the details, and the devil's always in the details. But my thought is, it won't affect this plan any more than it affects anything else. There are going to be some effects, and yes, we're all going to have to go around and figure out what the heck we have to do. We have to rewrite our ADU stuff that we just did, and we have to do a lot of stuff. This, and I'm sure this plan will get affected by that other work. But I'm not flinching here with this plan, because most of this is flexibility and uses and things that are outside of the intent and the scope of that Senate bill.
And the other, can I say something? The other thing I would just add is that, so with the Senate bill that got passed, there's an implementation time frame, and I actually don't know what it is off the top of my head. I need to wrap my head around it. I think you're right. Basically, they directed DLCD to come up with some model language for folks. Kind of heard rumor that there may be some opportunities for early adopters to get some extra assistance with crafting language. There was an email that got sent out, and I was like, oh man, we might be ending up with another grant. Great. But
And I told him, I can't believe you're even
I know,
suggesting.
and yes. But I do think, personally, Shane's opinion, whatever, doesn't count for a ton. But I do think that a lot of the stuff that we're proposing in the RC, what we're calling the RCOD overlay zone, the River Cherry Overlay District, there is a specific element to allow those middle housing types that are defined in that Senate bill in the residential single-family properties within that area. So for me personally, I think it's kind of nice. It's kind of a bummer because it takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails of going, oh, we're being innovative and forward thinking, and hey, look what we did, and now it's like, hey, look what everybody's going to do. But I think it does give us an opportunity, the fact that we're bringing this in this specified area, we're bringing this to hearings starting in August, that depending on how hearings go and how much stuff makes it through the process and what kind of testimony there's in the community, if we see a lot of support in it, selfishly, I'm glad, because I think it will give us a little bit of a roadmap in the future of how we may be looking to implement that Senate bill across the board. Because with that bill, there is still the ability it doesn't take all cities' ability to regulate out the window. You still can make those reasonable design regulations. And so I think it will give us a good ability to kind of gauge, okay, if this gets adopted and moves forward, if things start being developed, what are we seeing? And so we may have a little bit of a window to see, does this make sense to end up kind of applying that citywide or something in between? So for what it's worth, I think, like I said, when I heard it passed, I was like, oh, that kind of makes me feel like we're not doing something quite as neat or out of the box, but it is at least something that might give us almost like a little bit of a test run on what that box looks like. So,
Okay, thank you. My question is, this document that we're going to see in a week or whenever, does that, let me back up. At the last meeting, there was a showing of hands, unofficial vote, poll, whatever, on what direction both the committee members that were there as well as the whole body, which was, I don't know, there's probably 30-some people there, whether we want to, expand, not expand, a hybrid of something. Is that going to be reflected in the document that we see coming back, which was the kind of what the committee and the general public there inputted?
Okay, well, you kind of need to hit the pause button because, and again, this is what we struggled with through the entire projects. That was the buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis, community outreach.
Oh, okay.
This one is the
Just the river.
revitalization.
Cherry, okay.
The BLI H&A, we have not actually charted out how we are going to bring that to you and how we're going to take that to council. Because there's been court decisions that say if you are in deficit, you cannot adopt. So unless you have solved your problems, you cannot take that for adoption. So what other jurisdictions have done, and I'm again speaking just for the BLI H&A, which, have we said the acronym enough? Do I get to just keep with that? Buildable Lands Inventory and Housing Needs Analysis, okay? I'm not going to say it again tonight. So we are trying to figure out exactly how it is going to come forward to you. What other jurisdictions have said is they have brought it to their councils, and the councils have directed staff to bring back proposals of how to address the deficits. So that, in some form, that's how this is going to play out in our future, that BLI H&A.
Okay. All right.
That is different than this.
I missed that.
I know. Trust us, which one?
Every day.
Which one? Which
Every
one?
day for us, Karen. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So, one other thing, a new and old business, whatever, is you may have noticed, you may not have, that there is scaffolding around the stump in front, and the process has begun. They have removed the bark. Turns out the pole is taller, but we knew that it was damaged. We knew that there was damage at the top, and so there's basically going to be, I believe the official number is 7 feet of the pole is going to be removed. And part of the design was to include a carving of the school bell that was in the Heritage Building. Well, because we have worked quickly and adroitly, I might say, we actually, the board met, the Heritage Foundation, Keizer Heritage Foundation, met last night, and Lori Christopher got them to agree to let us display the actual bell as part of the carving. So instead of a carving of the bell, there will be the actual school bell will be part of the story pole. And so it is, we actually went and I'm seeing that look. We actually went and because things are starting to happen very fast, and the carvers want to start at the top and they'll be working their way down. So they actually wanted to get that bell and get the measurements and everything. So we actually went and removed the bell, and They have the brackets now, and they're going to be working on that.
And when Nate says we, he literally means we went and removed the bell.
Shane was a little sweaty, I got to tell you.
I'm not wearing the same shirt I was wearing this morning.
Anyway, so it's kind of exciting, and I think that it's going to be a really fun addition. Now that it's actually happened, it's going to be very enjoyable, and it's going to be a great addition. The sign is actually, the electronic message center sign is actually also happening all at the same time. Do you know, do we have a date? No.
It'll be soon, though.
It will be very soon, as in weeks, not months. So there you go.
Get it? Where it's gonna be? Sign?
They've got a general idea.
Okay.
Somewhere on the city campus.
On the
In
dugout.
front there was an issue.
Somewhere in Keizer. Be around.
Did you actually go out there, Nate?
Zoned for car washes
And
and signs.
Find out where it was?
No.
Did you talk to
No,
the lawyer?
I have it on good authority. I talked to
Yeah.
Commissioner Collier,
Yeah,
and
it's somewhere along the 900 block of Shamawa.
so it's in the triangle that's to the east of where the story pole is being carved.
In the roundabout, actually.
Oh, there you
Everyone.
You just
The
be
cow. Cow side.
yeah. So
Anything else from staff? Okay. Counselor Freeman.
I'd make sure my mic's on. Well, it's been quiet, I think, just because it's summertime, but we do have a council meeting on Monday, July 15th, and then on August 5th and 19th. One thing to note, National Night Out is the first Tuesday, which is August 6th at 6 p.m., and so you just need to register on the city website if you would like your neighborhood to participate, and then you are visited by city council members and or the mayor, police department, fire department. Usually McGruff comes depending on the weather if it's not extremely hot. And it's just a really good time for neighbors to get out and, meet your neighbors if you hadn't. A lot of them will have a potluck or, ice cream and games for the kids. So that's always a fun night. And then just to make note, the next community conversation, which is sponsorship between the city and the Keizer Chamber, is the same night of our next planning session, which is August 14th, and the topic will be Keizer Fest. So it could be busy around here on that day. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, we don't have a youth. Has there been applicants for the youth committee, Liza?
No, not yet.
Okay, all right. Mark, you're available for Monday, July 13th?
I'm always anxious to step before the city council.
Well, thank you. That's so appreciated. Let's see. Next month, I won't be here. Crystal will be chairing the meeting. And it sounds like you're going to have your hands full. I'm glad I'm not going to be here.
I know. It was like that was on purpose.
Yeah. And
All
just,
on fire. It'll be fine.
and just a reminder on another event that's happening in the community the last Saturday of this month, which I should know the date, but I don't, the 27th, 28th of July.
7th,
Thank you. There's a canine foot pursuit, which the Keizer Police are chairing to put on as a fundraiser for Marion County Special Olympics. And it looks like it's going to be a successful event, but there's still time for people to sign up. They can go to runsignup.com. There's going to be a 5K non-competitive run walk in the West Keizer neighborhood area. It will begin and end at Keizer Rapids Park. There's going to be food served to the first 300 people, as well as there's going to be a big bounce toy out there for kids, and face painting and rock painting, and it should be a fun activity. So I would encourage everybody, not just here, but in the community, to come forward and see what's going on and help support Special Olympics for Marion County. If there's nothing further, let's adjourn. We are adjourned.